People try to change their lives in a single decision, a new routine, a new identity, a clean break from the past. For a few days, it works. Then the energy fades. The old patterns return. It is easy to think this means we lack discipline. But what if the problem is not our willpower, but our model of change? Welcome to Mini Mind Hack. Today we will look at the idea of Kaizen, what it originally meant, how small changes alter behavior over time, what happens in the mind when improvement is gradual rather than dramatic, and why this approach may be more realistic in a fast, overstimulated world that constantly demands radical transformation. The word Kaizen comes from Japan and is usually translated as continuous improvement. It became widely known in the West through the work of Masaaki Imai, a Japanese organizational theorist who in 1986 published a book called Kaizen, The Key to Japan's Competitive Success. Imai was observing Japanese companies after the Second World War. These companies did not rebuild by making one giant leap. Instead, they focused on small daily refinements in production, workflow, and communication. The important detail is this: Kaizen was not about motivation, it was about systems. In practice, this meant that instead of asking workers to work harder, companies asked very specific questions. Where does a delay happen in this process? Which small step causes confusion? What tiny adjustment would make tomorrow slightly smoother than today? Over months and years, these minor corrections accumulated. Now translate this from a factory to an ordinary life. Most of us attempt change in the form of a declaration. From now on, I will exercise every day. I will stop procrastinating. I will become more confident. These are large identity statements. They require immediate consistency across many situations. But daily life is messy. We are tired after work. We are distracted by our phones. Our mood shifts. When the plan collapses, even once, we often interpret it as failure. Kaizen proposes something quieter. Instead of changing your entire routine, you change one small action. Not, I will read every day, but I will read one page before bed. Not, I will become fit, but I will do 5 minutes of movement after waking up. At first glance, this looks insignificant. But over time, small actions alter how the brain predicts the future. Here it helps to connect Kaizen with research on habits. James Clear, an American writer who summarized a large body of behavioral research in his 2018 book Atomic Habits, describes how habits form through repetition in stable contexts. When you repeat a small action in the same situation, the brain gradually reduces the amount of effort needed to start it. The behavior becomes less a decision and more an automatic response to a cue. What matters is not intensity, but consistency. In the beginning, the change feels almost trivial. You might even doubt it counts. But something subtle happens. Each repetition slightly updates your self-image. After reading one page every night for 2 months, you no longer feel like someone who is trying to read more. You feel like someone who reads. This shift in identity was already described long before modern productivity culture. William James, an American philosopher and psychologist writing in the late 19th century, was one of the first thinkers to describe the self not as a fixed core, but as a stream of habits and actions. In the Principles of Psychology from 1890, he explained that our character is built from repeated acts. Every small action leaves what he called a trace in the nervous system. He was not speaking metaphorically. He meant that repeated behavior makes future behavior easier. Over time, what we do becomes what feels natural. From this perspective, Kaizen is not just a management strategy, it is a way of shaping identity without forcing it. And this matters today because we live in a culture that often promotes the opposite model. The Korean-German philosopher Byung-Chul Han, in his 2010 book, The Burnout Society, argues that modern individuals no longer experience pressure mainly from external authority. Instead, we pressure ourselves to optimize, to improve, to become better versions of ourselves without pause. We internalize the demand for performance. This creates a paradox. We are told that we can be anything, but we must prove it constantly. When improvement is framed as a dramatic transformation, it becomes another performance. We announce it publicly. We measure it. We compare it. If the change is not visible quickly, we feel behind. Kaizen removes the spectacle. A small improvement does not look impressive on social media. It does not produce a dramatic before and after image. But precisely because it is modest, it does not threaten the ego when it fails. If you miss one 5-minute session, the identity does not collapse. You simply return the next day. There is also a psychological effect related to competence. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, a Hungarian-American psychologist known for his research on flow, described in his 1990 book, Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience, how people experience meaning when challenge and skill are balanced. If the challenge is too high, we feel anxiety. If it is too low, we feel boredom. Large, sudden goals often create anxiety because they exceed our current capacity. Small adjustments, however, can be calibrated. They stretch us slightly, but not enough to overwhelm. In daily life, this means that improvement feels manageable. You finish the small task. You experience a sense of completion. This reinforces the behavior. Over weeks, the level can increase naturally. What is important here is the time dimension. Kaizen works because it respects how change unfolds. On day 1, the difference is almost invisible. On day 10, still small. But on day 100, the accumulated effect becomes noticeable. Not because of one dramatic effort, but because of a stable direction. In a world saturated with stimulation and comparison, this direction matters more than intensity. Many people today feel fragmented. We switch tasks constantly. We consume information in short bursts. We compare ourselves to curated images of other lives. Under these conditions, large self-reinventions are especially fragile. They demand continuous energy and clarity in an environment that rarely provides either. Small improvements, on the other hand, fit into imperfection. They accept distraction as part of reality. They assume fluctuation. Kaizen does not promise a new identity overnight. It assumes that identity is built indirectly. You do not decide to become disciplined. You practice one small act of discipline repeatedly. Eventually, the label follows the behavior. This is slower. It is less dramatic. But it aligns better with how humans actually change. If you have ever felt that you start strong and then quietly return to old habits, it may not be because you lack strength. It may be because you attempted to redesign your whole self at once. Kaizen suggests a different approach. Do not change your life. Change one small action today, then repeat it tomorrow. Over time, the accumulation becomes your new normal. And that's all for today. Thank you for spending these minutes with Mini Mind Hack. If this perspective helped you see your own patterns more clearly, you can subscribe or share your thoughts in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching. See you next time.